They thought he was finished, until she spoke. People like to believe that cruelty only happens in dark alleys or empty streets. But the truth is, it often happens right in front of everyone, in the middle of the day, where nobody wants to be the one to step forward. Ethan Miller had no idea his life was about to change when he walked out of that cafe. He was just another man waiting for his coffee, scrolling through messages, thinking about his job, his bills, the small problems that filled his world. He wasn't angry. He wasn't in a hurry. He wasn't looking for trouble. Trouble found him. Bradley Knox had that walk, the kind that said the world owed him something. His shoulders were squared, his jaw tight, his eyes constantly scanning for anything that felt like disrespect. When he bumped into Ethan, it wasn't hard enough to hurt, but it was hard enough to be noticed. "Sorry," Ethan said immediately, stepping aside. That should have been the end of it, but Bradley wasn't looking for apologies. He was looking for power. "Watch where you're going," Bradley snapped. Ethan turned back. "I just said sorry." The tone was calm. No challenge, no sarcasm. Bradley stepped closer anyway. "What did you say to me?" Ethan raised his hand slightly. "I said I don't want trouble." That sentence, that calmness, felt like an insult to Bradley. He shoved Ethan backward. The force caught him off balance. A few people gasped. Phones started to rise. Bradley smiled. "You think you can talk back to me and walk away?" Before Ethan could react, the first punch came. It wasn't professional. It wasn't skilled. It was pure anger thrown with the intention to humiliate. Ethan fell. The street went quiet in that way crowds always do when something becomes uncomfortable. Everyone was watching. No one was moving. Bradley stood over him. "Get up," he ordered. Ethan tried. Another blow knocked him down again. Someone whispered, "Should we call someone?" Someone else said, "He should just stay down." And that's when a calm voice cut through everything. "Step away from him." Bradley turned. A black woman stood nearby, eyes locked on him. She wasn't shouting. She wasn't emotional. She was steady. "Mind your business," Bradley said. She didn't blink. "Step away," Bradley laughed. "What are you going to do? You his lawyer." Ethan was barely aware of what was happening now. His ears rang. The pavement felt cold beneath him. The woman took one step forward. "Last warning." Bradley turned back to Ethan, lifting his fist again. "Police officer," the woman said. "Hands where I can see them." The words didn't sound loud. They sounded final. Bradley froze. "What?" He scoffed. She pulled out her badge. "Detective Maya Reynolds." Everything changed. Bradley tried to back away, then tried to run. He didn't make it 3 steps. In moments, he was on the ground, cuffed, stunned. "I didn't know she was a cop," he shouted. Maya looked down at him. "You didn't need to." Ethan was helped to his feet. Blood dripped from his lip. Maya knelt beside him. "You're safe." But safety, Ethan would later realize, was only the beginning. The incident went viral. Not because of Ethan, not because of Bradley, but because of Maya. A black woman in casual clothes stepping into violence without hesitation. The internet had opinions. Some praised her. Others questioned her. A few tried to twist the story. Maya didn't speak to the media. Ethan did. And that changed everything. He talked about the fear, the helplessness, the crowd that watched, the woman who didn't. The city listened. But behind closed doors, Maya faced something else. Questions. Investigations. Pressure. Not because she did something wrong, but because people wanted to find something. Ethan visited her one day. "I don't know how to thank you," he said. Maya smiled slightly. "You don't have to, just live." What Ethan didn't know was that Maya had lived this kind of injustice her whole career. Being doubted, second-guessed, watched more closely than others. Still, she stood. Weeks later, Bradley went to court. The evidence was overwhelming, and for once there was no way to spin it. When the verdict came down, Maya was in the back of the courtroom. She didn't smile. Justice didn't feel like celebration. It felt like weight being lifted. Ethan rebuilt his life slowly, physically, emotionally. He never forgot that moment. And Maya? She kept doing what she always did, standing, even when it was uncomfortable, even when no one was watching. Years passed, not the kind that erase memories, the kind that turn them into something heavy you carry quietly. Ethan Miller healed. The scars on his face faded, but the memory of that pavement, the sound of fists hitting skin, and the silence of the crowd stayed with him. Some nights he still woke up feeling like he was falling, but something inside him had changed. He no longer walked through the world assuming people would do the right thing. He walked knowing someone had to, so he started small. He volunteered at a local community center teaching conflict resolution. Not theory, reality. How quickly moments turn dangerous. How to read tension, how to step in before things spiral. At first, only a few people showed up, then more. And then one day, someone said, "You saved me from a fight last week." Ethan didn't know how to respond. He wasn't a hero, but he was becoming something he never expected, a quiet protector. Meanwhile, Maya Reynolds rose through the ranks. Not smoothly, not easily. Her name followed her everywhere. The viral clip, the case, the controversy. Some saw her as courageous. Others saw her as too visible. Visibility, in some systems, is a threat. She faced internal reviews that other officers never did. Her decisions were questioned, her tone criticized, her professionalism scrutinized. Still, she kept going. Because she didn't become a cop to be liked. She became one to be right. Years later, she found herself leading a special unit focused on violent street crimes. The cases were ugly, the work exhausting, but the results mattered. One evening, after a long day, Maya walked past a small community center. A sign caught her eye. De-escalation workshop, free entry. Inside, she recognized a voice. Ethan. He stood at the front of the room, not as a victim, but as a teacher. Calm, clear, confident. Their eyes met. They both paused. Later, they talked. Not about the street, not about the beating. About life, how things changed, how they hadn't. Ethan told her how that moment had reshaped his purpose. Maya told him about the weight of wearing a badge in a world that watches you differently when you do. They laughed, softly. The world outside was still complicated, but inside that room, something felt right. Far away, Bradley Knox watched all of this from a different place in life. His name never fully recovered. He drifted from job to job, reputation trailing behind him like a shadow. People remembered. He had become invisible, not because the world ignored him, but because it didn't trust him. One day, he saw Ethan's face on a community flyer. He stared at it for a long time. He never went inside. Because some consequences don't end in court. They end in who you become after, and who you can never be again. Time has a strange way of rearranging people. Not all at once. Slowly. Quietly. Ethan's workshops kept growing. What started in a dusty room at a community center became a network of programs across the city. Schools invited him. Youth groups asked for him. Even some police departments quietly took notes from what he taught. He wasn't preaching. He was explaining reality. How anger works. How fear hides inside pride. How violence is often just someone desperate to feel powerful. People listened because he wasn't speaking from theory. He was speaking from the ground. One afternoon, a teenage boy stayed behind after class. His hands shook as he talked about how easily he lost control, how one day he was afraid he might seriously hurt someone. Ethan didn't judge him. He gave him tools. That boy came back, then brought friends, then younger brothers. A ripple formed. Meanwhile, Maya's unit was handling some of the city's most volatile neighborhoods. Every night brought tension. Every call had the potential to become the next viral tragedy. She knew what that meant. One wrong move and you weren't just an officer, you were a headline. So she trained her team differently. They learned how to read body language, how to slow situations down, how to let silence do the work instead of force. Some officers resisted at first. It was easier to dominate than to de-escalate, but results spoke. Arrests dropped, complaints fell, lives were saved. Then something unexpected happened. A community activist who once publicly criticized the police reached out to Maya. They wanted to work together, not argue, work, and so a partnership began, one that didn't make the news but made a difference. Across town, Bradley Knox lived in a world that kept shrinking. Every job ended the same way. Someone recognized his name, someone Googled, someone asked. He never talked about what happened that day, but he felt it everywhere. He moved to another city, changed his style, tried to become someone else. It didn't work. One evening, he sat in a cheap apartment, watching a news segment about community violence prevention. Ethan appeared on the screen, speaking calmly, confidently. Bradley felt something twist inside him, not anger, something worse, regret. But regret doesn't come with instructions. Ethan and Maya crossed paths more often as their work overlapped. Sometimes in meetings, sometimes in quiet late-night phone calls about difficult cases. They weren't close, but they were connected. Not by trauma anymore, by purpose. One night, a call came in about a tense standoff at an apartment building. A man was threatening to hurt himself and others. Negotiators couldn't reach him. Maya remembered something Ethan once taught her, how people in crisis need to feel seen before they feel safe. She asked Ethan to come. He didn't wear a vest. He didn't carry a weapon, just his voice. He spoke through the door, not commanding, not pleading, listening. Minutes stretched into an hour. Then the door opened. No one died that night. Afterward, Maya stood quietly beside him, shaken. Not many people could have done that, she said. Ethan shook his head. Anyone can, if they're willing to care longer than their fear. The city didn't celebrate that moment, but somewhere, someone was still alive because of it, and that mattered more than applause. The city began to change in ways no one could easily measure. Not in statistics, not in headlines, but in small moments. A heated argument that cooled instead of exploded. A crowd that stepped in instead of stepping back. A voice that chose to speak when silence used to rule. Ethan's programs were now running in 3 different districts. He didn't just teach conflict resolution. He trained people to recognize the moment before anger turned into destruction. That moment was fragile, invisible. But once you learned to see it, you could save lives. One afternoon, a school called him urgently. 2 students had been in a bitter rivalry for months, and that day it finally boiled over. Teachers couldn't calm them. The room was filled with shouting, tears, and fear. Ethan arrived quietly. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten consequences. He simply stood between the 2 boys and said, "Both of you are afraid. Let's talk about why." The room went silent. By the end of the hour, no one had thrown a punch. That night, one of the boys went home and cried for the first time in years. Maya, meanwhile, was facing pressure from higher up. Her unit's methods were being questioned, not because they failed, but because they didn't look powerful. Some people preferred force because it looked decisive. De-escalation looked slow, soft, unimpressive. But Maya knew better. One wrong move, one unnecessary escalation, and a life was gone forever. So she stood her ground. She kept training officers to listen, to pause, to think. Some transferred out. Others stayed and changed. One of those officers, a young recruit, later told her, "You saved me from becoming someone I wouldn't recognize." In another part of the city, Bradley watched all of this unfold through screens and stories. He tried to ignore it. But every time he saw Ethan's face, every time Maya's name appeared, He felt like the world was reminding him of the moment he wished he could erase. He wasn't the same man anymore, not because he had grown, but because he had shrunk. One evening, he finally did something he had avoided for years. He wrote a letter. Not to Ethan, not to Maya. To himself. He wrote about who he had been, who he thought he was, and who he became when he chose violence. He never sent it, but it sat in his drawer like a mirror he couldn't look away from. Back in the city, a public forum was held on policing and community trust. Tension filled the room. People came angry, afraid, defensive. Maya was there. So was Ethan. Not on the same side of the table, but on the same side of the truth. One woman stood up and said, "I don't trust the police." The room stiffened. Maya didn't interrupt. She let the woman finish. Then Ethan spoke. "Trust isn't given, it's earned." Slowly. Every day. Maya nodded. That moment didn't solve everything, but it started something. After the forum, people stayed to talk, not argue. Talk. And that was new. The city was still broken in places, but cracks were letting light through. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like hope. The city begins to push back. Success attracts attention, and attention attracts resistance. Ethan's work was now impossible to ignore. His name was being mentioned in school boards, community meetings, and even city council discussions. People who had once dismissed him as just a guy who got beaten were now calling him a leader. But not everyone was comfortable with that. Some politicians didn't like the way his programs made their departments look. Some donors didn't like that he spoke honestly about systemic failures. And some powerful people didn't like that he refused to be controlled. Maya warned him one evening. "You're stepping into dangerous territory," she said quietly. Ethan nodded. "I know. What you're doing is right," she added. "But right doesn't always mean safe." He smiled. Neither does silence. Not long after that, strange things started happening. Funding requests stalled. Venues canceled at the last minute. Anonymous complaints were filed. Someone was trying to slow him down. Then one night, Ethan arrived at the community center and found the front door broken. Inside, chairs were overturned. Flyers torn. His laptop was gone. Nothing else. Just his work. A message. Maya arrived before the fear could settle in. "This isn't random," she said. "Someone wants you to stop." But Ethan didn't. Instead, he went public, not angry, not dramatic, just honest. The city reacted. Volunteers came, donations poured in. People who had never spoken up before shared their own stories of violence, silence, and survival. The harder someone tried to shut him down, the louder he became. Bradley makes a choice. In another city, Bradley Knox was living a life that barely felt like one. He worked nights, avoided people, watched the world through screens, but Ethan's voice was everywhere now, and so was Maya's. One night, Bradley stood in front of his bathroom mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. The quiet war. The backlash didn't arrive with sirens. It came with paperwork. Ethan began receiving notices he didn't recognize, audits, compliance reviews, permit challenges. The language was polite, professional, and cold. It was the kind of resistance that wore a suit instead of a mask. Someone was building a wall around him. Maya saw it immediately. "They're trying to bury you without touching you," she said. Ethan didn't look surprised. That means they're scared. His programs were no longer small. They were touching places people didn't want examined. School discipline policies, police response times, how often conflict turned into force. Data, stories, and faces were all pointing to one uncomfortable truth. Violence wasn't inevitable. It was enabled. And systems don't like being told that. A city council hearing was scheduled. Public comment allowed. The room was packed. Ethan stood calmly at the podium. "I'm not here to attack anyone," he said. "I'm here to ask one question. If fewer people are getting hurt, why are we trying to stop that?" The room went silent. Maya watched from the back, knowing exactly how dangerous that sentence was. Not because it was wrong, because it was right. The smear. The next morning, headlines hit. Old photos, misleading quotes. Stories twisted just enough to create doubt. They didn't accuse Ethan of crimes. They accused him of motives. He's doing this for fame. He's anti-police. He's manipulating communities. The goal wasn't to prove him wrong. It was to make him untrustworthy. Ethan felt it immediately. Invitations slowed. Supporters grew cautious. Some even pulled away, afraid of being associated with controversy. Maya confronted him. "They're isolating you." "I know," he said. "That's how pressure works." But he didn't stop. Instead, he went where no one expected, straight into the neighborhoods that had lost the most. No cameras. No press, just people. And they listened. Bradley returns. Bradley's interview had stirred something he didn't anticipate. Not forgiveness, but conversation. People were arguing, debating, remembering. And that scared him. One evening, he walked into one of Ethan's workshops. He sat in the back, quiet. Ethan noticed him. So did Maya. The room tensed, but nothing happened. At the end, Bradley stood. "I was the man who did it," he said. "You could hear breathing stop. I can't undo what I did. But I'm here because pretending I'm not that man hasn't worked." Ethan didn't shout. He didn't condemn. He said one thing, then stay. And Bradley did. The turning point. When the next council meeting happened, something unexpected occurred. People filled the seats, teachers, students, officers, parents, not to protest, to speak. Story after story poured out, of moments that could have turned violent and didn't, because someone learned how to pause. The numbers didn't just support Ethan's work, they proved it. Silencing him now would mean silencing them. And systems hate crowds they can't control. Maya watched it all unfold, knowing that sometimes justice doesn't come as a verdict. Sometimes it comes as momentum.